Nintendo is fully aware of Palworld's success, yet they refuse to comment, meaning that they are frantically trying to find a way to shut it down, or at least send a message. Why? Because Palworld shows the world that a dev with $10,000 in his pocket, no idea how to develop a game, and a team of 15 plus people can produce a greater game than a multi-billion-dollar company. Yes, the devs learned how to develop on the job. More on the devs' unbelievable story soon. Just compare Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to Palworld, and it's clear that Game Freak should be producing to a much higher quality than they are. Hardcore fans are screaming that Palworld has ripped off Pokemon and ripped assets, but the latter isn't true, and the former, well, that happens all the time. If Pokemon was better quality, right now Pokemon with Guns wouldn't have sold 7 million copies in 4 days and be the second highest peak concurrent players of all time on Steam, just behind PUBG, which Palworld is on pace to top. An IP lawyer also told Bloomberg that the Palworld devs have very little to worry about. So Palworld is what we all really need to kick the Pokemon Company and other large developers off their arrogant perch. I say this as the most hardcore of Pokemon fans. I was there from its launch. I have all the collectibles, played and finished every single Pokemon game outside of Hey You Pikachu. You know that Nintendo would be all over Palworld if they could. Recently a modder put Pokemon into Palworld and says that Nintendo has come for him already. We can't be sure of the truth of that accusation, but with Nintendo's history of protecting its IP from modders, you can be sure that if they haven't already jumped on him, they will soon. The future of Palworld looks bright. The devs have said they plan to make the best game ever and have released an early roadmap. It includes addressing critical issues first and improving Pal AI, while adding PvP, raid bosses, a Pal PvP arena, crossplay, new islands, Pal's bosses tech and more. So a roadmap is something we've never gotten from the Pokemon Company. You get the game and its improved future for all around $20 USD. It's actually insane that the game has no microtransactions and is priced well under even the last gen of Pokemon games like Pokemon Sword and Shield, and even less than boxes of Pokemon cards. This is an open world survival game where you can utilize the world's monsters, which you can catch for protection, combat, food, or workforce. Something the Pokemon Company really should have made themselves. Pokemon Arceus exists and was a breath of fresh air at the time, but why do they need such a big proof of concept with so little innovation? The main Palworld dev was extremely novice when it came to coding, yet he self-taught and combed through code to catch bugs. He had a starting budget of around 10,000 USD, he took out every loan, emergency loan, and it was suspected that he even borrowed from the Yakuza, and he was fully aware he couldn't pay off all his loans with his current income. All because he believed in making games. They started Pocket Pair and put out the game Craftopia to an uneventful success, yet with his crippling debt, they started on Palworld and still put the game up at $20 on Steam because he believed the game would be a success. He didn't care how long it took, he just wanted to take as long as it needed. When asked about his creative vision, he said, "I don't have one, I just want to make a game people like. I'm very serious about making games," and this was all in an interview on Japanese TV. They hired a lead programmer late into the project and he insisted that they move from Unity to Unreal Engine 5, so the whole team learned it from the ground up. The CEO only ever used it once before. The programmer taught the team how to rig models, saving them an estimated 6 years of development. There was no version control for most of the development, as everyone used literal buckets of USBs and merged them into the main build as they finished their stuff. One of the main concerns I'm seeing is that the game has pooled assets, and the game was made by AI. The main Pal designer was a woman very into designing fake mods and used her personal designs and scribbles. It seems it wasn't made by AI at all, so if we look at the rigs, they don't at all line up with Pokemon's. The devs also had a gun designer who was prior unemployed. The decision to make Pokemon with guns was because they were worried the game would not be a global success unless they added guns to it because, and I quote, "Americans like to shoot things." Also, a gender-neutral Type A character creator was created because, and I quote, "Americans sometimes want to make very ugly characters." I mean, they got your ticket, America. You can't argue with the results. Finally, their main modeler was a Japanese high schooler who they found because he worked part-time at a convenience store the devs went to. He would actually pause his development while studying for a test. He was the one that pushed for a neutral character for international appeal. All this proves is that they're very aware of what would work in the international market. The game is on track to outsell Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and really, it shouldn't come anywhere close. A tiny team with almost no money and no creative direction beyond doing what will sell should not be able to produce better quality games. The fact that they could does show their luck and skill, but more so shows the failing of Nintendo. They left a gap that could so easily be filled. Looking at Scarlet and Violet and its now 2 DLCs, I enjoyed them, but they were littered with issues like terrible frame rates and frankly an awful raid system that would feel like you're fighting lag just to get a move in. The character models looked jankily designed and everything looked like it belonged on a PS2, but most of all it felt uninspired. This is from a multi-billion-dollar franchise, so when Palworld came along and delivered something fun that borrows ideas from Pokemon, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and modern survival games like Ark, it slots so nicely into a spot that the audience is familiar with, yet still is something they haven't gotten before. Former Pokemon legal chief Dan McGow says Palworld looks like the usual rip-off nonsense I would see 1,000 times a year, and he's surprised it got this far. His surprise is less than surprising. They seem to think ripping off the idea of battling monsters based on real-world things produces uninspired games, that Pokemon is untouchable. Palworld proves otherwise, that dropping their quality and frankly losing their inspiration will leave gaps in the market for someone else to come in. Pokemon fans should not be raging against Palworld, they should be celebrating it, because all it means is that the Pokemon company that steadily drops its quality while milking you dry will have to take a long, serious look at itself. It also shows other devs that they can make successful games and charge reasonable prices. A major concern in today's climate is the rise of AI and stealing content, that the Palworld devs may have used AI to develop the game. I've seen so much discourse on this that it's a bit too much for me to discuss in this video. Recently, Magic the Gathering developers, Wizards of the Coast, came under fire for denouncing AI art but posting an AI generated image on their Twitter. This is my take, and although it sucks, it's the truth. AI is coming and it can't be stopped. Some jobs will cease to exist. Technology has been making jobs redundant since the dawn of blue collars. Sadly, this means people are fighting a losing battle. Artists will slowly diminish to a handful of niche areas and be replaced by artists who know how to best utilize AI. I say this as a YouTuber whose job is also most likely to vanish due to AI. You can't fight the tide. If Palworld is a harbinger of the new times, so be it. If they use AI to develop, which I doubt and there's no evidence of this, then all it would show is that AI can develop international smash successes. Why is that a bad thing? People have been using technology to get the edge for as long as humans have been able to tie pointy rocks to the end of sticks. It wasn't long ago at all that people who use Photoshop to develop art were scrutinized. Those who fear losing their way of life will fight. I'm fully against AI stealing other people's designs, however, and until AI is perfected, this is something we need to keep an eye on. I digress, these are the times we're living in. Generations are being raised that don't care about how original things are, rather how entertaining they are. I personally prefer originality, even though the most original games out there kind of lack originality. So you have to expect those who don't care to simply drift to whatever they have the most fun with. And who are we to say that that's wrong? It's an open market. If there's a gap, someone will fill it. So original ideas won't vanish. They will deplete until there's a hole and then someone will fill it. Since we as consumers are used to our holes being filled by big businesses, it's about time that we were the ones doing the filling. So thank you so much for watching. What do you think of Palworld? What do you think about the discourse? Let me know below. I'm super interested in hearing more. So for everything RPG, you're in the right place. Ciao, friend.